Kendra Pottinger.
Anybody else?
Norman Sudlock.
All right, hi guys. Did everybody get a chance to go over last month's minutes? Motion to approve. Joe, second. Mr. Roach? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're gonna wait on the bills. We have to do capital asset.
Don't use it.
Yes. Who was it? Joe and Mr. Roach. That's all right. I'm sorry, were you ready for me? I never asked. I'm right. Okay. It's okay. Okay, so nothing for capital assets. We're gonna go ahead and go right to animal control. What you got for us, Scott?
Not much. Pay the bill.
We haven't all looked at it yet, so we're gonna have to hold that bill right to the end.
Just our main thing is pushing her forward, trying to, I talked to John this morning, to try to figure out our database that we use for animal control is on Microsoft Access, which is so outdated now that, as John says, pretty soon there won't be people who even know how to do it. And I forget the name of the gentleman who actually did that. Yeah, actually set it up. And it works fine. You know, now we look at other programs and so much of them are geared to having a shelter. You know, and some of them are, you know, if you buy the full fee, it's like $20,000. And of course, then probably $1,000 or $1,200 a year maintenance on them. So, but we look, sometimes there's ones you can get that just, you know, portions of them to look at that. And he just has sent me now, I don't know why Sharon didn't tell me that they came there. She doesn't really want to change. And I understand why.
Yeah.
It's not fun. We've been using the same program for 20 years.
Right.
It's not fun. So we'll push ahead on that.
So he has found something that he thinks will work.
Well, he had several they were looking at, and they were supposed to get that to me, and I haven't seen it yet. So, but I did look at shelter for a little bit.
Okay.
Other
Anything
than
else?
that, we just keep trying to stay healthy.
Yes. Anybody have any questions about Doc's report? Go ahead.
Thank you, Doc. It's been a few years. I had a couple of questions. It used to be registration fees were about 100, registration fees, they normally were about 150,000. It looks like they're 185. Are they up a little bit?
No, I think
Is that about what it is?
about what it is. Actually, I think it's been a little bit more at times.
Okay.
So
All right. Did COVID change any of that?
I didn't seem to.
And do you still have problems with like veterinarians going to like Rural King and then setting up a clinic?
COVID's helped that.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they're not doing those.
Okay.
So it's that probably helped us a little bit actually. To get the registration fees in.
Okay.
Yeah, good. That's a good question.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but I bet, yeah.
Yeah, you know, they wouldn't collect the registration fees, and then it's so hard to collect.
Right.
That's the problem. So, if you guys understand that. Yeah, they used to do vaccination clinics at these places. A lot of them were put on by humane societies, you know, or for different groups. And then they would collect the money. And the problem is they wouldn't collect the registration fee, and then it's really difficult. And even though these people are out of county and everywhere, so, which when they're out of county, we wouldn't collect it, but we would still try to. If you got the registration fee, you know, Sharon always sends it to the county the first of the year. So.
Any other questions? If not, motion to place report on file. Joe, Mr. Roach, second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Doc. Be careful.
Thanks for letting me go first, I apologize.
Who would like to go next?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Okay. First off, since I'm kind of learning the ropes here too, do you need this?
Those are yours, right? The
Those are mine,
yellows?
right? These are mine, right? Okay. All right. Report wise for, order coroner's office, we finished up the year with, of 2020, so that'd be January 1st through the 31st, is, 1,216 total cases right now. And of that, as of January 4th, we have 144 COVID deaths. Now those, you have to realize, you may say that seems a little low what the health department reports, because they do reporting that's different than we do. These would be actual LaSalle County citizens that either a LaSalle County doctor or ourselves, the coroner's office, had signed off on as COVID deaths. Okay, because there's a lot of them, obviously, that get transferred out of the area.
How many was that? What was that number?
144 as of January 4th, okay? Of that, we've had as everyone sees, we've had a substantial spike. So like in November, we had 157 deaths, which was, as we look back historically that we can find, that was our all-time highest death rate in the county that I can find for at least the last 15 years that I can find accurate records on. In December wasn't much better, it was 139. And of those numbers, in November, 37 were COVID, and 58 were COVID in December. So you can see it's still pretty rampant here in our county. It has at least spread out a little bit. It's not, we get one maybe every other day instead of 2 or 3 at night. So that's on that front. Then any questions on bills or anything?
Did you get your safety equipment?
Oh, I was gonna bring that up. If you want me to talk about that now in their old business?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it on there.
No,
I
that's
just
fine.
remember when Bill was here.
Yeah, I was actually I gotta clarify that,
Yeah.
so, yeah. Can I talk about that now?
Sure.
Okay, so I guess when Bill was here in the November meeting, his last meeting, he had, brought up, back in November here, the CDC, and I apologize, I should have brought you a copy of it, but here's the CDC recommendations, as of November 22nd, 2020. Bill had requested, because in here, of course, we have to attend autopsies in a autopsy suite. And it says here the recommended protection, because the contagions, when you're running, not too graphic, but when you're running a bone saw, it aerosols things. And they recommend that those that are there use PAPRs, it's called a powered air purifying respirator. They have their own staff, but we do not. So Bill had requested, I believe it was approved. I did a little research, myself and our staff, got some different quotes, obviously, we're not gonna just pick the first one. Did some research by calling other medical examiners as well as some of the hospitals and stuff to get some feedback on what were decent ones. So I'm proposing that we get 4 of them, because they're not cheap. By the time you buy the unit, the batteries, the charger, the extra, what they call cuffs that seal it up. So we were able to get 2 different quotes. One was $7,431.60. And then what we did was, this is a third-party vendor, so we actually reached out to the actual maker of the device. It's called MaxAir. It's kind of the ones we settled on. And that one, they gave us a better direct governmental price of $6,173.09. So my understanding was we were gonna take that out of the 97 account, so I just wanted to see where we're gonna be with that. So I think originally they had approved 10 of them, but
That's what I was thinking. So going back to that, I think the reason
the reason is primarily it's gonna be myself and the chief deputy. We're gonna leave one there, with our name on it at the current board, so this way we can circulate. If one of the part-time deputies does have to attend, we have our equipment there ready at the morgue, and we've gotta have one for the backup.
So were the ones we approved never ordered? I thought we did.
They were, no, he never ordered them.
Never ordered?
No.
Not that. I thought that was approved already.
Yeah, and I apologize, I just found out about it, so that's what I'm working on this week.
Brian,
I think, sorry, they're 6,000 apiece?
No, that's for 4. The whole thing for 4 of them with all the needed batteries. There's like sealed, they call it a cuff. The filters, the battery charger, the unit itself. So for 4 of them with the shipping is $6,173 right from the vendor, right from the manufacturer. that was the most reasonable priced one that would fit the bill, and it seems like to be the one that most of the medical examiners, coroners that have been going with this system, because it's very user friendly. Just got, it's like a hood with like almost looks like a saran wrap. You've probably seen them on TV. They got just a small little hose that goes down to one belt clip.
Well, he brought us, I think, at the last meeting,
Yeah,
pictures of the.
He brought us pictures and.
Yeah, those were a different one, but when we did some, like I say, I would, since I'm the coroner now, I would prefer that we get these, you know, I did the research, reached out to those who are actually using them to get some input. You know, I would prefer to get these, and these are less money, so.
So
Do we need to reapprove it, or I think we
I would-
already approved it?
it was approved. Well, we approved different kind, a different type though. This is a different type of suit.
Right.
I mean, so,
The other ones were like those, I like to call them the beekeeper.
yeah, the
ones.
beekeeper ones, yeah.
Yeah, they look like, you know, hoods, and they're kind of cumbersome, and then they fog, and these things are, that's the advantage everybody was saying, these never fog up, even if you have glasses. If you have facial hair, you don't have to worry about that. The other beauty of this is we don't have to get involved in getting our guys, which we don't know, we're gonna open up that kind of work, and getting a regular fit test, because you have to be careful what brands you get too. So we do not have to get fit tests for these.
So do we have to retract?
Motion
and
to,
bring it? Do we
yeah,
have
do
to?
we have to bring?
I'd make a motion to approve like the safety equipment. Asking if you want to approve the other equipment.
All right, motion to approve the safety equipment that Rich has come up with for the amount of the 74,3160.
No, 61,7309. Right, now, just so you're aware, it could be a couple dollars more or less, because they gave us an approximate shipping price of $200.
All right, so take the dollar amount out
Yeah,
and motion to approve
Yeah.
the safety gear for 4
Who should?
units.
I think they're in California.
Mr. Roach,
Yeah, they're in California.
second by Mr. Sedlak.
Yes, I'll second it.
Any questions? Ryan?
I have a few. So, I'm in favor of it, but Fund 97, it's not really a catch-all, more it's coming out of the general fund.
Oh, okay.
So I just want everybody to know
Yeah,
that
I'm
it's not just management fund, that there's money everywhere, and it's flush. That's the grant money that was supposed to come in. So I'm trying to pull it up right now to look at it, but, I mean, it's clear you need it, it's a safety issue, I get it, so I don't know if it's Fund 97.
Well, it's somebody.
Because Fund 97 expenditures is budgeted 0. So I would say you take it just out of his budget.
Just take it out of my equipment thing. It'll go over, it'll empty it.
It will go over,
Yeah.
so, and, we'll have to, I would say we're gonna have to do something in, probably like, we could do something in finance or something like that to move money. But I would take out equipment and let it run over.
What will you have in mind? Are you organizing this stuff or?
Well, once they did say that they are, right now, that they don't have any, but they've got a huge order that's gonna be ready on the 13th of January. To supposedly they would, you know, once we receive our thing where we're in the line, we're supposed to be able to get them soon after, so. I was surprised as much as everybody needed.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. What else we got?
And then under new equipment, I have on the new business.
Yep.
I'm gonna use our 51 account, 2 things I'm working on. We haven't had, I'm gonna look into, I've got 1 bid, but obviously I'm gonna get a couple other, reach out to whoever the sheriff uses actually, as another secondary bid. I'm gonna get 4 radios, because we haven't updated our radios since the tornado back in 2004. That's the ones we're using. They're obsolete, batteries are dead. So I do have a quote for about $3,300 for 4 of them. He did forget a couple of chargers on there, so I've got him redoing that quote. But since it's electronic stuff, I'll take it out of our 51 account, so it won't affect. So I'm just letting you know I'm working on it. So. And then the last thing is just FYI, and I don't know, I talked to Bob Kaminsky. I do have some intentions to, there again, I'll use the 51 account. I do want to get myself some new office equipment, AKA, and Bob is going to put me on the list to, repaint the place. It hasn't been done anything with it since Jody Bernard was there 15 years ago, and the stuff's peeling off and the floor is bad. So he was going to work on putting me on the list. So I'll be purchasing some cabinets and then some storage cabinets so I can, utilize the room, because obviously we're not at the point of supporting the board right now, so it sounds like we'll be there for a while, so.
You'll still be on the list for a while, actually.
Yeah, but that's what I figured. He's supposed to let me know, so I know there's a lot of people on the list, right? The old list. So that's everything I have.
Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Joanne.
Hello, is
Hello.
that Mr. Lee?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Bob. All right, Sheriff, Connie, who's next? Anybody? Sheriff,
Yes, ma'am.
go ahead.
Well, the only thing that we really have for you today is we want to talk about the contracts that are coming up. So I'm going to open it up to Jason, or Jason explain the contracts for the jail. And things. Well, what the reason is we'd like to start early. We tend to be struggling through at the end and try to hustle all this stuff through, and we just discussed it, and he said, why don't we just bring it up as early as we can and see if the committee is interested in entertaining this information at this point in time. And if you are, we can start these discussions now, hopefully, kind of cram it all together at the end of the year. And that will give our finance people a little idea of what's going on for next year as well, Ryan. So that's the thing, so it's up to your pleasure, what you like, man.
No, that's done, I'm good.
Alright, so if I remember correctly, it is this committee that opens the sealed bids, correct? They go out from this meeting, then you guys open them, and then you make your recommendation off the sealed bids to finance.
I think so.
Okay, that's why I was starting here. We have food service and medical just to make sure in case anybody missed at the end of the year. I got my years mixed up on that. I thought them and food service were alternate years, but they were supposed to be last year. They did have a thing in the contract where we could extend 1 year, which is what we did. Which is why I want to get on the ball on this now, because who knows what's going to happen in the next 6 months, and then I tend to forget about things, and if we have this on the agenda, we start moving on it. So I brought copies of our 2 contracts. In these 2 contracts, they both put in their listing of the last RFP. There will be some changes to the RFP, especially for medical, just because everything is changing in the corrections field of what we have to give with the mental health care and things such as that. So I'll work with Mark Anderson, and I'll try to at least have a rough copy of an RFP for the next meeting on both of these, so that we can review them with you guys. Any questions or suggestions, I hope you all know that I'm always open to those, to help out, because honestly, I hate doing the RFPs. They're one of the worst parts of all of this, because there's so many different things that you can forget about to try to get in there to cover the county for everything that we can, so. That's where we're at on that. If there's any other suggestions at this point, but I think that I have to go through Mark Anderson, because he's usually the one that writes them up. Hopefully he kept the last 2, and then we can move on from there. Otherwise, I got copies of them.
Ryan?
So, like when I first got on the board, they were about $400,000, and now they're at least $700,000 the last bid.
For the medical,
Yeah.
yeah, we're pushing 700.
So, and if I remember right, we went from providing no mental health coverage to like, what, a couple hours a week for a doctor and a minimum of 4 for a psychiatric nurse?
Yeah, I think it's 10 a week for, we started with 4,
Start with 4, now
and
we're
then,
at,
yeah, we're up to a good amount of hours with the nurse. It's still just the doctor once a week, or the psych doctor.
okay. And then, as far, what are some of your ideas? Do you think we need more mental health coverage? Do you think we need less? Do you think that we need to make sure they can vaccinate people? I'm curious where you wanna go.
I'll tell you one thing that I would love to have, and again, this is where the board comes in handy for outreach, is we cannot get a local psychiatrist that wants to join on to do this. So when we first went to the mental health with the psychiatrist, they had, for 6 months, they had it listed in whatever medical stuff they do, which showed up locally also. They couldn't get anybody that wanted to come in here and do it, so we have to do telepsych, which is very tough to do, because then you're asking a doctor to evaluate people over the computer. Which I understand is becoming a more normal practice, but in our situation of being incarcerated, we wanna make sure that there's no, you know, no misdiagnosis, nothing like that, which I don't think there have been. But it'd just be nice to have somebody local, like we do with Dr. Patoki, who is physically here once a week to see the inmates. He's got a clinic in town in case we need something, he's available to us. So it would be fantastic to be able to get something like that. I don't know if that's gonna be feasible, because as I said, they listed it for 6 months and they couldn't get any interest from anybody around here to do it. As far as the mental health coverage goes, it's just all going to be stemming on, where jails are leaning is more and more towards, getting, so the girl we've got working on her now is extremely, qualified in what she does. She came from the state prisons doing the same thing. And she on her own is moving towards doing group sessions with the inmates instead of just doing one-on-one time. For multiple reasons. It helps her time frame, because then she doesn't have to see 120 people in a week, because she can bring them down and do like they do in groups. But a lot of your settings in a lot of jails and prisons are moving to more treatment in that way. So it's gonna be a lot of different, well, I think what's gonna be looked at is the treatment styles that we're doing for people when they're incarcerated. So again, it'll probably just come down to hours thing. Now, I think the biggest cost problem we have, and let's face the fact, that's the biggest question here, is how can we help with the cost, is the outpatient services. We gotta take them to the doctor. So when we first started this, my first RFP, they came to us with an option of, they pay up to $20,000, and then we pay anything over $20,000 up to $100,000, and then some insurance thing kicks in at $100,000 to take the rest of it. They put in a second option of, they would cover everything up to $100,000, the county cover from 100 to 120 or something like that, and then that insurance rider would kick in over 120. But it was substantially higher to do that. Now, the flip side of that is if you only used 40,000, they cut you a check for that 60,000 at the end of the year that you didn't use. So we went back and we looked at the past 10 years of where we fell every year. Well, in the past 10 years, we averaged around $14,000. So the obvious thing to do was take the $20,000 one. Well, since then, we might have fallen under $20,000 one time. I think we've had at least one baby every year in the jail. A lot of drug issues. We're sending people out to the emergency rooms, things like that. And you're obviously fully aware of the number of trips that you guys make to the jail in a year to take people down there. So it gets expensive when you start doing that. And then when the other big issue we have is when they end up in choices, because choices is very hesitant to let that back out. So then we have to sit on the amount of choices.
And you have a guard, and you have all the.
And then paying for them to be there.
Oh, yeah, there's that, I guess the soft cost of that.
Correct. So it's things like that that, you know, if we could do something to kind of, those are just all things we have to evaluate when we look at the RFPs. And we'll pull from other agencies, especially the other accredited agencies, see what they're doing, see what their costs are on their medical places. Maybe there's something we're missing to ask for in the contract that gets us some type of a lesser cost on something.
Now, the telepsych, They can't prescribe them anything, can they?
You can.
They can't. Like what's Xanax, stuff like that.
They don't give Xanax, depends on what it is, but psychotropic medications, they do give some of them depending
Because
on
I know-
what their cases are.
A lot of those medications, and a lot of doctors don't tell you the dangers of actually trying to wean off it. Because they can be, from firsthand experience, it's miserable. So if we can, I don't know if we can put some kind of language in there, not to just be like, hey, before you prescribe this, at least give this person a heads up, hey, if you ever want to wean off this, that's gonna be their goal. It's not gonna be fun.
Well, I will tell you this, our doctors are very stingent on putting people on medications like that.
Good.
In fact, one of the complaints we've had from attorneys over my time here
Yep.
is that when inmates come in on certain medications like that, our doctors instantly wean them off of it.
Nice, good.
Mainly because they're not the ones that prescribe them to them.
Yep.
They know nothing about the doctor that prescribed it.
Yep.
And if there's not medical records such as surgeries and things like that to support it,
Yep.
they're not gonna continue it.
And there's a lot of doctors out there who, like you say, misdiagnosed,
A lot of
and
times,
they're just gonna say, we'll take this.
yes.
So,
Unfortunately, that's true.
yeah.
If I could just throw this in real quickly, there's probably none of you here who actually met Dr. Fatoki. Dr. Fatoki is a guy that is a quality guy. I don't know a lot of doctors, but of the doctors that I do know, this guy he's a real human being. And as a doctor, he's a real human being as well. And I think Jason backed me up on this. He sees him a heck of a lot more than I do. But the times that I have seen him, I think that's something, Joe, that you can rest relatively sure with the Dr. Fatoki.
That's
It's
good.
not some pill peddler.
That's good.
And
Because there's,
this isn't this guy.
yeah, and I definitely wasn't insinuating.
No, I know you're not. I
Yeah.
just want to say, you guys don't get a chance to see him, and to understand him.
Yeah.
Understand that you don't get a chance to see him, but from our perspective,
Yeah,
I think the both of us would stand there and tell you that
yeah.
this is a quality guy.
And, I'm not ashamed to say, when I was going through all that anxiety, all that stress, I was taking 7 different pills a day and a
I
half.
see, that's,
And I didn't feel one iota better. It was smoking off, and now I actually feel better than I'm not.
that's going on anyway.
It was just.
Well, and Patoki has a clinic in town that he does,
that's
abuse, he has an abuse clinic. He applied for a grant and received it, and on his own time, not on the contract time, has started up a medicated assisted treatment program through here. Now, I will say that's gonna be one of the things that the company that comes in currently is going to address in their contract. Because, even though Fatoki is managing all of that, they're still under our care, so they're going to want that somehow put into the contract that it's being done. It's a great project. We're one of only a couple of jails in the state that do it. A lot of jails and prisons up in Wisconsin, Michigan are doing it. But he's been working on that to try to get some of our opioid inmates when they get out, so that they're not having the issues they're having with help. So he's been very good about that too. And also, he believes that he is going to leave the medical company with the request that he can stay with just us, just our facility.
That'd be great.
I think we're very lucky, very fortunate that this guy has taken to us as he has.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I've got under the camera thing on there.
Yep.
Just to update you guys on this, there were some emails going back and forth between Kevin and IT, and the, auditor's office and that. So last year it was budgeted, Kevin printed this out for me. I don't know if there's a line number on here or not. It's under the capital improvement part of the contract. There is a line item approved for $105,000. What that is a camera and upgrade the automation system in the jail. It's crashing on a regular basis. IT has been trying to work on it. They're getting calls regularly to come over the crashes. One of the things that we've never done in the past, because the old IT didn't want it when all of this was put in, this IT wants to be involved in this. they wanna be hands-on in it, so that if we have to change a camera, they can come change the camera, they don't have to call somebody out to do it. But because of the cost of it, it has to go out for bid. So they've got the number that they've got is from a company they've been working with. It gives them a rough idea of what it would cost, for the changes that they need to make everything correct. But we obviously have to go out for bid for it, so that is gonna be coming up also. Again, I assume our IT is going to be doing that RFP, because that's way, way out of line. It'd be like me trying to give somebody a heart surgery.
How many times has it crashed?
It crashes a couple times a week. At least one of the servers. The servers are getting old and they're obsolete, I guess, which is a term that I get sick of hearing in electrical stuff.
I guess, well, what does IT do when they come out and try to fix it? I mean,
That's generally reboots of some kind.
okay. It just continues to. I guess what I'm saying is,
So we've lost.
we're fixing it.
The problem is, this is the problem for me, I guess. Technically, it can be a problem for the county, it hasn't been yet, but we've had incidences where either an attorney, the state's attorney, somebody requests a video, I go look for that video, there's no video there. And then the reason there's no video there is because the system had crashed at that time. For some strange reason, everybody thinks I'm this video guru, and I get these accusations that I erased it because something bad happened. And I look at it and tell you, I'm lucky I can turn it on, let alone erase it.
That's the thing, that should be top priority.
Well, that's the new system, when we put it in, it was really good and it worked really well, but.
Everything gets older. I mean,
Sure.
nothing is as, good as it was when we bought it. And you can count on the fact that when the lawsuit gets filed,
Oh, they're gonna want that.
and that camera's not there and it's not working, whether it crashes, they don't care. The attorneys don't care. What it looks like is you're hiding something. It's true, we've been accused of it, he's been accused of it, it's all malarkey, that's not what's going on, but we can't provide what we don't have. This costs you money. Because they're gonna argue to the court, they're gonna argue to our attorneys, the rest, that, and when they can show a history of this, that it continues, time after time, the checkbooks are gonna have to come out.
I was gonna say,
Because the courts and stuff are not gonna put up with this over and over again with the same excuse, well, we're sorry, it's the electronics.
it might cost us money, but it's gonna save us money in the long run when they go to court and be like, hey, you got footage.
Mr. Johnson?
Is that RFP sitting on IT's desk now so that they can move forward with it as quickly as possible?
If it's not a finished RFP, there's probably not much to it for them, because they know exactly what they need. Kevin spent a lot of time over there with two different groups of, people looking at everything and finding out everything needs to be done. And just on that note also, I wanna say, for those of you that were around when we did this 8 years ago or whatever it was, and it was an expensive cost then, and what we all talked about that time was, how can we not have to do this again? And the company comes in and says, well, we just need to come in and do regular upgrades. And that turned into a struggle, getting people in here to do regular upgrades and stuff like that, until all of a sudden it's too late, so. That's the other nice reason about having IT involved in it, is IT will be maintaining it looking at it regularly, so if one server is going out, they can replace one server and, get that taken care of at a small cost instead of having to replace everything. In fact, one of the things they did tell me is we currently have 12 servers, and they tell me that's going away, it'll go to one, and everything goes to a cloud or something like that, that we don't have to worry about all that excess equipment that's just gonna fail.
Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, are you still under that court order from that one case that required a special volume where you didn't have to change it out as often or whatever that, or is that expired by now?
Well, I don't know that, there's two parts to that question.
Okay,
If it's a court order, I don't know that it ever expires.
oh, okay.
The problem is that the newspaper says it, the other attorney said it, nobody can give me a court order where it says we're supposed to stay with that 2 years.
Oh,
Now, in our last lawsuit from that same law firm, they had asked me that because we had trouble finding a video that was in there because the camera went bad. And I said the same thing to her in deposition. I said, could you produce to me where it said in the final order? And she, of course, got smart with me. And I said, I'm just asking a question. I just want to see where it says I have to keep it for 2 years, and she never gave me it. So I don't know if that was just discussion between the attorneys, but I'll be honest with you, it's not a bad idea, because it has helped us more than it's hurt us. When people have requested that, then we turn it over and we're like, oh, yeah, there's nothing there. So, it's nice to have that, because it does help us.
Anything else? We don't need to act on that because it was approved already, correct?
That was my understanding, the emails I got back from, I'll double check the email, I thought they told Kevin it just had to go through finance, but I wanted to come up anyway and let you guys know what was going on with it, since, you know, this is the committee we go through for that stuff. But yeah, last year, Kevin was working with Joyce and the auditor's office and getting all that into that capital improvement, because he was working on it last year.
Alright,
I have one more
Go
question.
ahead.
You said it was, you were having trouble getting upgrades, who was in charge of doing that?
At
That company or?
that time, it was the company put it in Seco.
alright,
Okay, he's done a last section, can we continue now with some other things that you're not gonna wanna hear, but you need to?
then no.
I don't wanna hear it either, but unfortunately, I don't have it on my desk yet, but it will be on my desk shortly, a 611-page bill, one bill, sitting in Springfield now being, I don't think it's even being debated, it's just being ran through in the lame duck session from our legislators that I talked to. I've been talking to them a lot last couple of days. It is an omnibus police reform act. It basically serves to gut the police. And it's, the stuff that's in it is incredible. And it's gonna require a lot of change. A lot of change. If that bill gets passed, and it is omnibus, so it's all four pillars are there, so it's gonna be heard that way. It will be devastating to law enforcement and to the citizens of the state of Illinois. It is not geared in any way, shape, or form to help the citizens or to help the police. It's geared basically totally toward the defendant. I can give you examples of it that would make you want to go throw up as to what's in it. And being it's omnibus, it's going to be voted on as is. There'll be nothing taken out of it. Tom, you do a lot of stuff on it. I don't know if you've seen it or not. I mean, I really don't think you probably read it all because I haven't either. Okay, but I know you look at a lot of this stuff. Check that one out. I can give you a number, not right now, but I can't give you a number. All kind of very, very anti-police things that are coming out of Springfield right now. If in fact it passes, which the expectancy is, that it probably is, which is why they're bringing it up, they probably feel that they have the votes to pass it. So this is why I bring it up. The lame duck session, and correct me if I'm wrong again, Tom, they need only half plus one to pass it in the lame duck session. It's not a legal session. This is a half plus one vote, right?
Yeah.
And talking to our folks down there, some of the legislators that have left office, that have been lost an election, have retired, whatever, a lot of them don't show up. They're just, why bother? Why go back to Springfield, clean up my office, I'm leaving. So therefore, when you get all your people who are gonna pass, who want to pass this vote, to show up whether you're gonna be there on the 14th or not, then you pass these bills. And this is how it goes. You will see in it as you go through it, there's very little, if any, thing that's not unfunded mandate. Very little thing. We have, as a sheriff's association, chiefs of police, FOP, state police, you name it, we have begged to be heard. We have begged to be part of this process, to discuss this, and they've ignored us. It's been pretty much an ignored situation. It's frustrating, incredibly frustrating to sit as a group of sheriffs, chiefs of police, whatever it might be, and sit and watch something just get shoved down your throat. And I think it should be frustrating to you as the county board and the city councils that are going to have these things shoved down your throat without any kind of response or available from you. And it's happening right now as we sit here. We're waiting for them to try to get the votes. The caucuses, and Speaker's office have been in the offices of the reps and the senators, pretty much telling them, and demanding their votes.
There's really nothing we can do. I mean, sure, you can contact the rep, but.
Oh, and, believe me, between Lance and Sue, we talked to Lance, and we talked about Representative Gednock and Senator Resin, we have both sides of the aisle here, which is very handy for us here in LaSalle County. And both have absolutely assured me that they're not gonna support this. However, they don't totally need their support because they have the caucuses in Chicago's support. And that's about all you need. Well, if you have basically Illinois, Chicago, Cook County, and St. Clair County, and the representatives from there and the senators from there, you pass whatever you need to pass. Because it's all, we're all votes on. And they have that apparently. So what I'm getting around to is basically is pretty much this. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know when it's all going to go into effect. I don't know if there's an effective date on it. Whenever the governor signs it, I suppose that will tell us then what the effective date is. If they're going to give us any planning, Brian, at all, that we can sit and talk with you guys, I will absolutely be up there. I don't know if I need to be on the agenda or not, so probably nothing we're going to be able to do about it if we do find out. But if it is, I would definitely want to be up there talking to finance and letting you guys know as soon as we can what we're going to be doing. For instance, body cameras being required. It's not the body camera that's expensive. It's the storage. It's when we take, and I'm standing, I'm talking to you, Joanne, and with my body camera running, and Amanda happens to walk back past. We have to blur Amanda, she's not part and parcel to what we're talking about, but she did walk through the room, she walked down the street, she walked from one room in a house to another, whatever, we have to blur those things up. You have to have someone to do that. You have to have the equipment to do that. Body cameras are not an end all, and the more we look at these things, body cameras are really not the best thing in the world. They don't, they see at night, our officers don't. There's not a one of you can see in the dark without some assisted illumination, right? But the body camera does. So is it fair to the officer to be judged upon what a camera sees, that he or she can't? That doesn't make a lot of difference. You, Joanne, can at any point in time tell me as I'm talking to you that, can you turn that body camera off? I'm really not ready for this. When I was president of the association, we sat and talked to some lawmakers, and we brought that up and said, I said, sir, what do you think is going to happen at 2 o'clock in the morning when our officer gets to a house and it's a prowler call, whatever, and he gets there and there's this very scantily dressed for bed young lady comes to the door and says, yes, there's heard noises back in the back bedroom, but can you turn that camera off? Because I'm really not dressed to be on camera. As lost as you will. You will turn it off on request or demand from the person. I said, sir, I said, how long do you think it's going to be before I get that telephone call? What do you think that telephone call is going to be? He was very serious about it. This is really a nice guy, a very nice guy to talk to, this rep. He said, well, I can tell you, well, thank you for your service. I said, no, they're going to say that as soon as the camera went off, that the guy tried to grope me and did all sorts of things, and we're going to get that, and we'll have nothing to defend ourselves with. How about when we shut the camera off? She's an individual who doesn't particularly like the police, her and her boyfriend. They shut the camera off, and the officer gets accosted by the individual out and has to defend themselves. What do we have to show that this guy came out with a gun, a knife, some weapon, and all the officer did was defend themselves? We have nothing. Wow. So we never thought of that. So well, that's the kind of things we're just asking you to consider. The bill came out, not a comma, not a period was changed. Nothing. The bill is not geared to protect us. It's not geared to protect you as the citizens. Bail bond issues are in it. They stuffed it with everything. The gun control issues are in it. All sorts of things are in it. And again, by making it omnibus, they're going to vote on one thing. In 611 pages, they're asking the representatives and the senators for 2 days' notice to get this bill and make a decision on it. That's what they're asking. Not asking, that's what they're gonna be demanding. 2 days notice. We have asked, and I have a check and supply to you, a 50-point document that we've been asking to sit down and talk and negotiate with the House, the Senate, the caucuses, how we can say, we're not organizations of no. That's not what we are. We're organizations that we're willing to start saying, yes, there are things we can change and probably do need to change to modernize policing and to get it better equipped to handle the future. They're not interested in talking to us at all about that. So just so you know, when I show up and I bring this, which I won't be bringing the whole bill to you, I wouldn't do that to you, but when I show up and say, okay, here's the things that are effective on these dates, okay, it didn't come from us. It didn't come from law enforcement. This came from Springfield, and not even from our people in Springfield, from either side of the aisle. This is not a Republican, Democrat issue at all. So we will find out what that's going to be. Okay? So just throw that heads up out to you. Oh, and you will see it. I mean, it'll be splashed all over the news. Okay, it'll be splashed on the news when it passes, and they'll all be hailed as heroes. Okay, down there, and we'll see what all plays out. So that's that issue. Anything about that before I move on?
Mr. Walsh?
No, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that you know, your lobbyists or your associations and so forth, have they tried anything like population-wise, geographic-wise, you know, and then famous last words that, you know, the cost-wise, that they include any funding if it does pass it? I haven't read the thing, as you mentioned, it's 600 and some pages, but, you know, and again, it's.
Yeah, would you say, yes, all these things have been offered to try to talk to all these things. It's falling on deaf ears. They don't want to be talked to about this because plausible denial is always very handy to have. Well, wow, we didn't know it would cost this much.
Yeah.
A fellow was from one of the companies was in, the body camera folks was in one day, he said, you know, if our company was smart, he said, we'd be giving these away to you with the caveat in the contract that you will use us for your storage. That's where the money's at, in the storage. Buying the camera and building the camera in today's world isn't a big deal. It's like your cell phones and stuff. It don't cost anything to make them. It's the use fees, okay? And the guy says it. He said, we'd be smart to it. Do you think that once this bill passes, any of those companies are ever gonna think that way? Well, no, they're not. They want the money because the price of the cameras are gonna go up and the price of the storage is gonna go up. Because they've got you over a barrel. You can't do it without it. And they talk about funding options and all stuff like this, but that's an afterthought. We'll wait and see how much funding there is. There are billions of dollars in debt. Where are you going to get the money?
Well,
What about they tell us these things like we're not smart enough to figure this out. That you're billions of dollars in debt. You're going to tax us to no end. You want to raise our taxes, but yet you got money to give us. Where's that coming from? Where is that money going to come from? It's not there. It's not there. So anyway, that's what I look forward to. Certainly we'll be keeping you apprised of whatever's going on right now. I have no idea when the vote's going to be. It has to be before, if they're going to ram it through, it has to be before they get sworn in on the 13th. So next week.
Yeah.
So it'll have to be run through there. The speaker is in concert with the caucuses and stuff very strongly for very obvious reasons, and he's running it through.
Jason?
Tom, just on the other point of that, I'm 300 pages into it, and my eyes are blurry because of it. But the only thing that the size of your areas, the only thing they're doing with that, no funding, but the time frames in which you have to do certain things is what they're attaching that to. So for us, we fall under the one where I think that you have to have your body cameras in place by 2023. If it goes by January 1, 2023, you have to have your policy and everything set up in place by our population. Some of them are this year, the higher population is. And and then it just goes down to smaller yards, so.
So they do realize that that's a point in the whole legislation, so.
But, yes, for that stuff, but not for any of the funding.
So, well, as I've told other committees before, the fact is, it takes responsibility from not only the associations of the various groups such as the sheriffs, but it takes the county board members on an individualized basis, you know, to call, even if you don't have the time to write, call, send an email, whatever it is, to the legislators on an individual basis and identify yourself as a county board member, and that's all critical. But again, as the sheriff said, you know, once these things start to roll, it's pretty hard to stop them. It's like a snowball going downhill. You know? It just keeps gathering more and more interest on the basis of, oh, this is good, this is safe. Well, that only goes so far.
Okay, the other thing that I have is, we're, replacing, people, replacing retirements, we're replacing people who moved on, to other, areas. So we've got, some folks that are going to school, they're starting on the 10th, down in Decatur. We have 2 that are going down there. We have, 2 that we have to replace in the jail.
One in jail, one on patrol. Cause we've taken.
Well, okay, well, technically, we take, one of our patrol officers is requested to work in corrections. And so we've made that accommodation for them, which I think is gonna be good for everybody. I think Jason's happy with him, and it'd be good for him back there, and that's why make him, you know, happier and stuff too, which is good. And so we have another individual that's left for the Marine Corps. And as, he's started next week, okay? So he becomes a Marine next week. So we are wanting to replace these 2 people. We have the people in place to replace them, okay? So there'll be 2 new people that will be coming in. The one guy's going back in the corrections, the other guy's going to be going out on patrol. And we want to bring that up to you today and keep you apprised of what's going on down there in the office as far as our personnel goes. We still do have one guy off on medical leave. He was injured in a fight with the guy. He's still off. And there's another one. Oh, I forgot about. And Felicia is off. Yeah, Felicia broke her arm. She was out in a search and rescue operation for a young lady, I believe, in Buffalo Rock. I think is where the lady was missing from, Jason.
I think so.
And anyway, Felicia fell, and during that, they did find the lady, and Felicia fell and broke her arm. We went from one thing to another, and she's had surgery now, and they're trying to repair it and get her so she can come back to work. So we're running 2 people short as it is. Right now, we're trying to get those slots full. It'll be 13 weeks, 13, 14 weeks, wherever the academy is right now, before we get the other ones back, and they'll go on FTO program, the Field Training Officer program, for another several weeks before we can put them on vehicles on their own. So we're running short. We're just trying to make it work with what we have. Anything else along those lines that you can pick up? Those are things we want to bring up. We are discussing and had a meeting yesterday with land use, and we're working with land use and quite possibly finance will be involved in this. I would expect, would you, Chairman, expect finance to be involved in that before it's over?
Likely.
I think after yesterday's meeting, I think it's pretty clear that once land use grasp of what all the numbers are going to be coming to finance about this. It's a court order repossession that's probably not going to be pleasant. So,
Could be like Sorrentino messing.
yeah, a lot like the Sorrentino case. Yeah. So anyway, those are the things. I know we're very fortunate, extremely fortunate. Things worked out that way they worked out in Oglesby. That was a tragedy waiting to happen, and it didn't, and we're very fortunate. We're seeing more and more of it now. Lots lots of people out there with that same attitude about waiting to go to prepare for the big one, okay? And people from Michigan down here traveling through the country. If you look up, it's public record, so I guess I should be talking about it a little bit. If you look up our guy's name, if you look up Sedona, as in there, Sedona, Arizona, airport shooting, happened about maybe a few days, not sure exactly when, prior to the Oglesby shooting. This guy's brother is in jail for trying to disarm a Sedona police officer up at the Sedona airport, and a shootout ensued there, and the guy's brother, another guy, and a girl are in custody out in Arizona for the same thing. This guy's brother. Interesting times that we live in.
Well, you forgot to tell me you've been requested to go out and do security at the Capitol today.
Oh, that's right, yeah. He just,
I told from Marcy down, so
You
you
just-
just are protected.
we're not going to Washington. I can't say we're not going to Kenosha, but we're not going to Washington. So that's all the good news I got for you, John. I'm trying to think of some other things that I could take.
No, that's all right.
But,
Brian?
I mean, you can always stop down and talk. I probably think of something later on, if you know.
So
And,
Sheriff, we had something.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Just, an open invitation to you. We want you to come down and see what we do.
Okay.
We want you in our jail. We want to walk.
Not literally.
Well, no, not yet. Because that's not the goal. Yes, I know around here, that's a joke. Okay, that's a joke for anyone who's listening. Okay, it's not. But we do want you there. The new board members, Mr. Chairman, your new board members, we encourage them to come down. Not that we don't encourage the rest of you to come down anytime as well. You're welcome. It's not a secret what we're doing, but I think it's easier for you all to sit here and listen to what we're talking about. When he's talking about cameras, when we're talking about this or that, if you've actually seen, other places. So I
I'll
want to
be
make sure that I, spoke to you about that today, and I tell you, give us a holler. Don, talk to Heidi. The door fobs for over here. As soon as we get those, we'll be in. We'll get those up to you for your membership. Okay, of the board, we'll get those up to you.
Brian's got a question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, sure. So we were in finance and there was discussion and we decided to we're gonna pay it out of finance, but there was a bill between the sheriff's department and the state's attorney's office concerning Department of Corrections
Yes.
inmates the state would not accept
Yes.
probably due to COVID. Has that been resolved? What's the status of that?
Okay, what the history is that basically, it's a long history, so I'm gonna nutshell this for you. But the Sheriff's Association has sued through its attorney, Rick Stewart. Sheriff's Association, Rick's not my attorney, he is right now, okay? Because the state's attorney's office has, at our request, has hired him as assistant state's attorney to represent us at these hearings on a suit that's been filed demanding that the courts required the prison system to accept our inmates. I don't know if we said anybody yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. We've had numerous run-ins with the Department of Corrections telling us that, they don't want us to bring our people such and such time for this reason or that reason. When they do say they're gonna take them, they have some unreasonable demands of us that they're making to bring these over. What it's coming down to is, we're end up holding people that should be in prison, which costs us money. If that individual gets in a fight and gets hurt here, we get sued. If the individual gets sick, we pay for that. If the individual, for whatever reason, gets involved in something that they get injured somehow, we end up buying that when they should be in prison. They should not be here. There's cases resolved, the minimus has been issued, and they should be gone, and they tell us that they're not going to take them. Well, there have been some resolution to that over time because of court cases. The court case has been filed. It's been filed on behalf of the sheriffs of Illinois by Rick Stewart Law Firm. He was formerly with Hess and Martone. He has left Hess and Martone, opened his own firm now. He's Rick Stewart Law Firm, okay? And the billable hours that he has been divided among all the sheriffs. So there's no big, huge, there's a big amount, okay? But it's being divided equally among all the sheriffs, whether you're Cook County or whether you're Putnam County. That's not the issue, it's just the amounts are the same. It's been equally divided. So when this came up, I spoke to State Secretary Donnelly at that time and asked her if in fact your office will be representing us, or shall we join with Heston Martone and Rick Stewart to be our attorneys in this? And said yes. So a document was generated that had to be signed naming Rick as a special assistant state's attorney for this case only, okay? So when the bills came in, those bills were presented, and as I understand it, we've been asked several times. Rick has called me several times asking is there any possibility we can possibly get our portion paid of this. And with a change in administration, we've asked if we could get this done, and that's why you're talking to Todd Martin now. These bills have never been addressed. They're not astronomical by any sense of the word, okay? But they do have to be paid. Rick called and talked to me personally and said he's changed, he's now in his own law firm and stuff. There's a document, I guess, between he and Heston Martone that any of the monies derived from this lawsuit that Rick personally has worked on through the office will come to the office of Rick Stewart. I talked to Todd about that this morning. Todd is going to call him, you get copies or whatever, so that we're not getting into a fight with Heston Martone and Rick Stewart as to where that check goes. Okay? So, and that was right before I walked in the door, Todd and I were talking about that. So I'm gonna get him Rick's number, he can speak to Rick, and the two attorneys can work out how they're gonna do this and where that check needs to be written. And Rick is gonna send the amount, the billable hours, everything written out as to how much he spent. Everything's very concise as to what it is currently up to this point. Now, question is, now we'll talk to Todd about, I'm sure we talk to probably, so this committee will be fine, because that won't be up to me as to who we talk to, but someone. How do we continue to proceed with this? Question will be, the state is being represented by the Attorney General. It seems as though the Attorney General's people just continue to drag it out, court hearing after hearing after hearing, knowing full well what that's doing. Every time our attorneys appear, there's a fee, there's an hourly rate. Are they just gonna take and just try to run us out of money and say, okay, fine, we're tired of it, we're not spending any more money? That will be up to you, it won't be up to me or the state's attorney. That will ultimately come up to you. And we'll be here discussing with you, probably in the board as a whole or at some point in time, what the ramifications of it would be if in fact we can't get our people delivered to the Department of Correctional. Jason, what about yesterday?
We had males go yesterday, we got females going on Tuesday.
Okay.
But we had 6 out of 30 of our males. We had 30 sets of males and they were only able to take 6 of them. So that's the only standing complaint that in the lawsuit, if there is still ongoing, is the fact of the restrictions of bringing them. Because they take as many as they can to keep into their intake until they get them through their quarantine, and then they filter in however many come out of quarantine, and they set up for arrival for the next day for another county. So this was the first trip we've made in probably 6 to 7 weeks. We've been waiting that long to make another trip.
So, I didn't bring that up, he brought that up. I told you I was done with the bad news. Okay.
I heard it on the other
He's the
day.
one that brought that up, I'm just explaining it.
All right, anything else for the sheriff? If not, we're gonna go to pay his bills. Motion to pay his bills. Brian, second. Joe, any questions? Everybody good? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yep.
We have EMA bills. You wanna read them? Or not? Motion to pay the bills for EMA. Mr. Green, second by Mr. Doze. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Hey, Connie, I'll be right back. That's fine. Scan my stuff out in the meantime.
I got one.
Joe, before you sit down.
Next time. I'll text
You have a little time this morning.
I'll send this out.
So, Mr. Green, my name is Connie Brooks. I'm the director for LaSalle County Emergency Management. Each month, what I handed you is my agency's, my department's report. Basically what we've done since the last committee, what we have coming up. We have 3 grants that we typically write for each year, and every once in a while we'll have other grants that will also show up, or we get sometimes like a 5th or 6th quarter in grants. All of that information is included in here. And Brian, I believe since the last time you were on this committee, I think the biggest change is, I also attached my budget. So you guys get to see each month, out of my line items in my budget, what I've spent it on, and how much is left in each of those. That's just something that I added, so, we also have, our department is part of the general fund, minus the local emergency planning committee, which you'll find on the second page. It's Fund 67. Here about 5 years ago, we started soliciting donations from Tier 2 facilities, which are chemical facilities with extremely hazardous substances. And we suspended that last year, basically because of COVID, because a lot of operations minimized because of COVID, reduced workforces, things like that. We did have an LAPC meeting on Tuesday. We will be reinstituting that. They get to choose based on how they determine their facility, if it's a small, medium, or large facility. They get to choose. Right now, we have a little over $9,000 in this fund. That money does roll over from year to year. We utilize that to spend on things for the local emergency planning committee. Local emergency planning committee is something that is federally required by statute under the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act, or the EPCA Act. So that just kind of gives you a quick summary as to what you have, what I handed you today. And like I said, I provide this to you each time. Kind of gives you a quick snapshot, plus you've got it in writing, so you don't have to write anything down. But it's been, for the last month, especially considering 2 holidays, it's pretty much been COVID. After action reports, finalizing our emergency operations plan. Our emergency operations plan for 2021 is done. It's actually at print. And I had a conversation with the chairman earlier this week because there is a page that he and I both need to sign off on, so before it can be dispersed. But that's what we've been busy doing, wrapping up year-end stuff and working with the health department very closely on COVID stuff. Just real quick on the agenda, I know it's been brought to this committee several times about the alternate housing issue. It went for property and the full board, they did vote on it. And it's a good thing it was voted on because we ended up using it that day. And we had a feeling it would, and it did. And so we ended up using it, so it was good that we had it. We had no issues with it. The person did their isolation period down there. We utilized our cleaning contractor, and everything went smoothly. So we were very, very fortunate for that. So
I do have a question on
Sure.
that. So there was some uproar last month about the cleaning procedure, who was responsible, did that get taken care
it
of?
all got taken care of.
Thank you.
Yep, that all got taken care of. Maintenance is no longer a part of that. That's the county's quality care cleaning company. We have contractors with them to do that. So they do pre-inspections, and then the post-occupancy inspections, and all the photos and everything, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and
and just as a reminder to this committee, that up until May 31st of this year, right now, the health department is the one that is funding that. So they pay for the alternate housing cost, as well as they also pay for the pre and post inspection and the fogging of the room, so.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it? That's all I have. Wow, yeah, I said I didn't have much.
That could have been the shortest you ever had in my 8-year tenure.
That's why I give it to you all in writing.
There you go, I like that.
Motion to place report on file, Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Sedlock,
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to pay the bills for animal control. Okay, Joe,
Absolutely.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. And water bills. We did those?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Yes.
Joe?
Yep.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Rose?
Aye. Oh, wait, I'll make that motion.
Mr. Roach? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Well, good seeing you. Congratulations.
No, hold.
See you, right? Good seeing you, man. Tom,